Even when I was a small boy, Papa used to sit me on his lap and read to me from the Encyclopedia Britannica. And we would read, say, about dinosaurs. They would say something like, this thing is 25 feet high, and the head is 6 feet across. And so he'd stop always and say, let's see what that means. That would mean that if he stood in our front yard, he would be high enough to put his head through the window, but not quite, because the head is a little bit too wide. It was very exciting and interesting to think that there was animals of such magnitude, and that they all died out. And at that time, nobody knew why. So that's the way I was educated by my father.
Feynman's scientific style was always to look for the simplest, most elementary solution to a problem that was possible. If it wasn't possible, you had to use something fancier. But no doubt part of this was his great joy and pleasure in showing people that he could think more simply than they could. But he also deeply believed, he truly believed, that if you couldn't explain something simply, you didn't understand it.
My cousin at that time, who was 3 years older and was having considerable difficulty with his algebra, and had a tutor, Kem. And I was allowed to sit in the corner while the tutor would try to teach my cousin algebra. And so problems like 2x plus, I said to my cousin that, I said, what are you trying to do? You know, I hear him talk about x. He said, well, you know, 2x plus 7 is equal to 15, he said, and you're trying to find out what x is. I said, you mean 4? He says, yeah, but you did it with arithmetic. You have to do it by algebra. And that's why my cousin was never able to do algebra, because he didn't understand how he was supposed to do it. There was no way. I learned algebra, fortunately, by not going to school, by knowing the whole idea was to find out what x was, and it didn't make any difference how you did it. There's no such a thing as you don't do it by arithmetic, you do it by algebra. That was a false thing that they had invented in school so that the children who have to study algebra can all pass it. They had invented a set of rules which, if you followed them without thinking, could produce the answer. Subtract 7 from both sides. If you have a multiplier, divide both sides by the multiplier, and so on. A series of steps by which you could get the answer if you didn't understand what you were trying to do. I have a friend who's an artist, and he's sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with very well. He'll hold up a flower and say, look how beautiful it is. And I'll agree. And he says, you see, as I as an artist can see how beautiful this is, but you as a scientist, take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing. And I think that he's kind of nutty. First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to other people and to me too. I believe, although I may not be quite as refined as aesthetically as he is, that I can appreciate the beauty of a flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he sees. I could imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have a beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension of 1 centimeter. There's also beauty at a smaller dimensions. The inner structure, also the processes, the fact that the colors and the flower are evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate it is interesting. It means that insects can see the color. It adds a question. Does this aesthetic sense also exist in the lower forms? Why is it aesthetic? All kinds of interesting questions which the science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower. It only adds. I don't understand how it subtracts.
Their father, Melville Feynman, worked for a company which made uniforms. This exposure to the military led to a strong rejection of authority, a value he instilled in his son.
One of the things that my father taught me was a disrespect. He'd open a picture in the New York Times, maybe it was a general, and he'd say, now look at these humans, he'd say. Here's one human standing here, and all these others are bowing. Now what is the difference? Why are they all bowing to him? Only because of his name and his position, because of his uniform, not because of something he especially did.
What Feynman hated worse than anything else was intellectual pretense, phoniness, false sophistication, jargon.
Was it worth the Nobel Prize?
That's a... I don't know anything about the Nobel Prize. I don't understand what it's all about or what's worth what. And if the people in the Swedish Academy decide that X, Y, or Z wins the Nobel Prize, then so be it.
No, I think that it was entirely right and proper. It was one of the best earned Nobel Prizes there ever was, I would say.
I don't see that it makes any point that someone in the Swedish Academy decides that this work is noble enough to receive a prize. I've already got the prize. The prize is the pleasure of finding the thing out, the kick in the discovery, the observation other people use it. Those are the real things. The honors are unreal to me. I don't believe in honors. It bothers me. Honors bothers me. Honors is epaulets. Honors is uniforms. My papa brought me up this way. I can't stand it. It hurts me.